Hi, everyone. Time to get started. How are you guys feeling? Good.
Feeling good.
Good. I'm going to do some quick intros for each of you guys, break the ice a little bit, and then we'll get into some questions. I'm going to start with Amy. She's going to be here as our voice for our in-house corporate panel. Amy Robinson is a graphic designer with in-house experience at the Arizona Cardinals, where she contributed to the team's visual identity across print and digital. Her work is focused on brand consistency with bold, engaging design for high-profile, fast-paced sports teams. Amy will share what it's like to work in-house for a major NFL team, and the collaborative nature of internal creative teams and the unique challenges of designing for a passionate fan base. She's also an associate professor and current program head of graphic design at the ASU Design School. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Next up, we have Adriana Parsons. Adriana is an award-winning communications leader with deep experience in public education and government. As a past president-elect of ASPRA and an active member of NSPRA, she has shaped strategic messaging for Glendale school districts, municipalities, and state agencies. Adriana is passionate about ethical storytelling, advocacy, and service-driven communication, making her the absolute perfect voice for our in-house public sector design panelist. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Followed, we have Jen Monroy. Jen is a very accomplished creative director with over 20 years of agency experience, including roles in branding, strategy, cross-platform design campaigns. She currently leads the creative team at Lavage, one of Arizona's full-service design agencies and creative agencies. Jen is known for her strategic thinking, collaborative leadership, and ability to turn some really complex ideas into clear, compelling visuals. And she will be one of our voices for the agency sector of our panel. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Eric Torres, wonderful guy. He's a multidisciplinary designer, creative director, and illustrator, born and raised in Phoenix with a career that spans agency, in-house, and now you've been freelancing for a while, sort of as your 9 to 5 or perhaps 5 to 9, I'm sure, as we all like to say. Eric now works on brand identities, digital experiences, game design, and meaningful creative partnerships through his own practice. His work reflects a very thoughtful, culture-driven approach that resonates with clients and communities alike, so thank you for being here. Corey. Corey, last but not least, he is the founder of Scar and Design, Resketch, and the current president of AIGA Arizona. With decades of experience in design, branding, and creative leadership, Corey is known for his experience and commitment to mentorship, advocacy, and elevating the design community. His work often intersects with nonprofits and purpose-driven organizations, making him a really ideal voice for the values-focused nonprofit side of the work that we do in the creative field. So Corey, thank you for being here. Awesome. I want to start us off with letting you guys know what some of the goals of this panel are. What I'm trying to do here is really help students compare and contrast some of the major career paths that they can take in the design industry or creative field primarily. Hopefully demystify some of the day-to-day responsibilities in each of your worlds, because they can vary from each sector. And then just explore some of the expectations that clients and maybe even some of the constraints that clients have given to you guys within each of your individual sectors. Sound good? Awesome, cool. I've done plenty of talking, so let's jump into some questions. What do you guys think? Yeah. All right, sounds good. For this first set of questions, let's just go from left to right and answer in turn. If you guys need me to re-ask the question, feel free to ask, and we'll go from there. Sure. We'll start over here. What does your typical work day or work week look like?
That's a great question, and it's a great question because it was always crazy. Like it varied depending on if I was in season or out of season. NFL seasons, those first couple weeks as you're prepping for the season to actually start. Training camp, etc. It depended on if we went any further than that. So if we went to any type of championship, NFC championship, etc. But it was always very packed during the season. So there were long shifts, long days. And because depending on which team that you actually worked for, being at the Arizona Cardinals, we had such a small team. They were one of the smallest teams in the NFL. So because of that, we also had to work other outside community events. So during the season, your day could run anywhere from 7 a.m. to 2 a.m. Or it could be a regular work day at 9 to 5. So pretty crazy, pretty packed. And then off season, you just find things to work on or keep working on things that were in season that need to carry over.
Beautiful. Adriana, what does your work week typically look like?
Thank you. A work week in a school district depends obviously on the season and if we are in the school year, which is a 9-month school year. But we do have employees. I'm a 12-month employee, so I'm working through the summer. And in the school year, in the heat of it, it is always checking in, seeing what's happening on each of the school sites. Every district is a different size. I come from a K-8, so we're looking at what's happening in all of the roles from preschools up to 8th grade. But then there are school districts that you have your high schools, which are much busier and a lot to handle with that. But really as a communications professional and teams that can vary with communications to graphic designers to communication specialists, it's really checking in with the needs of your leadership, your superintendent, identifying what the strategic plan is for the district, and then being able to create projects that would help lift up the messaging for whatever is the needs of your superintendent to share with what's happening in the community.
Lovely. Thank you. Sounds like a lot of work. Jen, what does your typical work day or work week look like?
In an agency environment, it truly is different every single day. Every hour of every day can be a little bit different. I myself am also our resource manager. So in addition to my constants, which are meetings and check-ins with designers and things like that, I also source our freelancers and vendors. We work on video production, so we might be doing pre-pro for that or out on a shoot. There are days that are just head down time where I'm in the thick of design and layout, just kind of going back to my roots of design. And then there are weeks where it's all of those wrapped into one, and then you crash out on Friday night.
Hopefully today's Friday night is one of those.
Yes. And sometimes you speak on a panel.
Yeah, absolutely. Eric, tell me about your work week.
So as a freelancer and entrepreneur looking for work, doing work is a organic process for me. I think day to day can look very different, somewhat like an agency role. Staying flexible is important. I think in a typical week, though, I might have a couple projects I'm moving forward. I make some time, usually in the mornings, to conceptualize, catch ideas, sketch, write is part of it as well, and really just prepare myself for connecting with other people in the community. That's a big part of freelancing, is getting to know a lot of people and being available to them when they're available. So it's a fluid process, and it does require me, I find, to be more and more flexible than I used to be, which was more regimented when I was maybe in an in-house role. So yeah, it's a lot of those things.
Yeah, we'll be getting into some of those connections here in a little bit, so we'll get there. Corey, how's your work week look?
Well, obviously, I'm involved in a lot of stuff, so I get up at 4:30 in the morning, and I get all of my prioritized design work done before 8. Because obviously, helping run a nonprofit, you have to be available when the volunteers are available.
Yep.
And I'm a big believer in in-person meetings, which everyone here has been a victim of multiple times. So I'm in my car driving around most of the day, but I have to be available for any fires that come up at Resketch, Scar, and Design, and then obviously be available for the volunteers at AIGA. So
Yeah, long nights, lots of discipline.
yes.
I love it. I love it. Well, softballs so far. So let's go just a little bit deeper. Amy, we'll start back up with you.
Great.
Who are your clients, stakeholders, and collaborators, as much as you can tell us?
Clients, stakeholders, and collaborators. Originally, you would think that it would be the fans, right? Those are definitely our clients, building things that they can enjoy at games. They can always stay hyped during the season. That's the main goal, is to make sure they always stay engaged, whether we win or lose. So that's the main focus. But because of where creative is in our particular team, and the size of the team, we answer to all the other departments as well. So anything that comes in from, or that is needed, let's say, as financial documents, or anything that's needed from the business development team as they're pitching ideas, media relations as things go back and forth between teams, back and forth between NFL headquarters. Those types of things are needed directly from creative. So not only is it our fans, it's also players, because we also do social media for some of our players as well. But then it's also the internal departments. Then it's also the NFL directly, as we build campaigns and stuff for the NFL as those initiatives come up. And lastly, the owners. So have to make sure they're happy as well. So a lot of hands.
Lots of people involved.
Yeah.
And you mentioned talking about even still designing for when you lose. Right?
Correct.
There's a whole nother panel that we're going to run a little bit later on that's all about successes and failures. So we'll get an opportunity to talk about that a little bit. Adriana, tell me a little bit about who you work with. Who are your stakeholders? Who do you collaborate with most? Tell me a little bit about that.
Thank you. Well, obviously, we're doing everything for our students, but looking at that from an external lens, it would be students and families and our community at large. We have a lot of community partners who support public education. We have a lot of policymakers, and being able to identify them as advocates for support for public education is ideal. Externally, it's our neighborhoods, it's our constituents, it's our taxpayers who live within our district boundaries. So really looking at it to be able to support our external communications, to share with them the stories of what's happening inside our schools. And then we have internally, within all school districts, we have multiple departments. We could be going to support for creative, for transportation, to put on a safety sign on the school buses. We could be working with the nutrition and their department to identify cafeteria items. We could be helping our human resources with developing collateral that they can take out to job fairs. So really, when we are collaborating, we're looking at what is the goal for our external communications and then our internal communications as well.
Yeah, kind of a public good support, but then also you have your internal partners to work with. So.
And depending on your size of your department, I've been a solo department for so long, I now get to bring on a specialist to help support that. So that's very exciting.
Congratulations.
It's huge, huge. Yeah. But for the longest time, I've worked with an agency of record. So I've had an agency that I feel like is my go-to. Every day I'm checking in, saying, what are our tasks, what are our priorities, and how can I have my agency be an extension of support to my department.
I'll ask a little bit later on about RFPs. That'll be a good time to talk about those agency requirements.
Yes.
And
yes.
Jen, I'm sure you can talk to the RFPs
I'm
also.
sure.
Two very different viewpoints.
Sort of both sides of the table there. Jen, tell me about your clients, which can vary from day to day, your stakeholders, all of those. Tell me what it's like to work with us.
We definitely work with clients across the spectrum. I myself work in education, healthcare, nonprofit, health and wellness. We even have a very high-end property in Utah. But I really do get to touch something a little bit unique almost every day. And then the agency even more so as a whole. Our stakeholders, there's internal and external. We've got obviously every client has their set of stakeholders, which can vary in levels from just their marketing department all the way up to their CEO and president. And then internally, our own CFO, our own president and CCO, like they all have a say in what pushes forward for our clients. Collaboration-wise, we are a rather large agency by Phoenix standards, but our creative team is a little bit small. So there's 4 creative directors, a couple designers, a couple production artists, and 3 copywriters, and that's who we generally will all just collaborate with each other pretty much all day.
Very nice. Thank you. Eric, yours might look a little bit different. Tell me about your clients and stakeholders.
It's an anomaly, to be sure. I think, so my clients and stakeholders, the clients are twofold. My customers, because I produce products out of my studio, and my clients are actual clients who I do provide services for those small to mid-sized businesses that need creative help. They might need identity work. They might need design support while someone's on vacation. I'll step in and help. So I've tried to be, again, adaptable to the kinds of needs I can fill. Stakeholder-wise, I'm a privately owned company of one, so I'm my stakeholder, really, and I need to be responsible with my time and the money that I spend for the business. So it requires a lot of, it requires some intense reading to make sure that I'm up on things that don't come naturally to me as an illustrator and artist. But those things have been getting more and more clear to me as time goes by, because at this age I have a different perspective than I had when I was a little younger, and that's helped me to focus on a lot of, in past experiences, focus on business needs, not just wants and things that are shiny and glitzy. So hopefully that answers the question.
Yeah, no, I
in a
think it does.
roundabout way.
And I got the unique opportunity to go to a talk with you yesterday, and you mentioned that you have a responsibility to your spouse not to turn the house into a warehouse.
Yeah, exactly. I would like to stay married, so I can't be, creating a distributorship out of our garage. But I think there are so many small things that actually become big things when you do try to provide products for customers and then also services. So that's an interesting, I have about a 60-40 break, where about 60% of my work is product-based and 40% is more services. So.
Yeah. And would you say your spouse is perhaps a stakeholder in there as well?
Absolutely, and benefactor.
I love it,
Yeah.
I love it. Corey, on to you. Tell me about the people you work with.
Where do you want me to start?
Wherever you like.
Well, it's kind of in a giant bowl.
Okay.
Obviously, on the design side, we work with a lot of people. We work with movie studios. We build and launch a lot of magazines in the movie industry and in the DIY space. Obviously, we're launching a new sustainable architecture magazine, because the notebook company is focused on sustainability, so that brings in a lot of clients to the design side. And then AIGA, of course, everyone in the creative community is a stakeholder. It's a community-based organization, but all of that stuff intermingles, because clients on the Scar and Design side become speakers at AIGA. Even Amy is a partner of mine at Resketch. We're doing a sustainable notebook for ASU. So there's really just a giant spaghetti bowl of stuff. And my wife and Beagle are in there too. So
I love it. I love it. The dog is definitely the stakeholder there. And you mentioned a spaghetti bowl. I think we're going to try to untangle some of that spaghetti a little bit, because I think that's something that students really value, is seeing. As a student, you might only be looking down the barrel of one project, or maybe 2 at a time, one for each class. I think all of us have had situations where we've had to manage several, maybe dozens of projects at one time. So we'll get into that a little bit. All right, a little bit of a harder question. What does your general creative process look like, sort of from start to finish, as condensed as you possibly can? General creative process, what does that look like? Amy.
General creative process, depending on what I'm working on, may change a little bit. But the basics, I have to have snacks. I have to have a comfortable chair. I have to have a hoodie. and I have to have music with noise-canceling headphones before I start.
Creature comforts.
I have to have those because if I have to get up to go find them, I'm not coming back. I'm not coming back to the work. So I have to have all those things before. But the first thing I always do before I start any design project is I sketch. I have to sketch out the idea. I have to get it all out on paper. I do not jump into the computer first. I have found personally for me that kind of stunts anything that I'm trying to do. I do not look at Pinterest. I don't look at any books. I just kind of sketch what's there. So I'm not influenced by other things that I see before I get those initial ideas out. This is all, of course, after I've spoken with whomever to find out the whole project brief, to find out what's really needed. So I'm not just sketching into a void. And then after that, then I will go into the computer, conceptualize digitally. And then I usually get 1 or 2 rounds of feedback from somebody else. Usually it's one person that's directly connected with the thing, whatever I'm working on, and not directly connected, just so they can tie those, close the loops rather, to make sure I'm on the kind of the right path. And then if it calls for it, things like color psychology, brand psychology, those types of things, brand strategy will be incorporated if need be. Whatever meetings need to be in there will be in there. I hope there's not a lot, but there's always 1 or 2. That could have been an email. And so just keeping those communication lines open, and that's basically it until it's time to deliver. And just, if I need to build out a whole project timeline for myself and working backwards from delivery date, I would do that. But that's it in a nutshell.
Nice. You mentioned not looking at like Pinterest before getting started. I tell my students something very similar about you can't go to Pinterest, Dribbble, Behance, things like that, because 9 times out of 10, those are students trying to do the exact same thing you're doing, and it's not real work. It hasn't seen the real world, and it hasn't been tested. So,
Or it doesn't apply.
Or it doesn't apply.
Or it doesn't
yeah.
apply.
I think that's a really good insight in starting with sketching. So
Yeah.
Very nice. Adriana, your process might look a little bit different.
Sure.
Tell
Well,
us about it.
I'll share how I work with my agency partners, knowing I have a piece of collateral that we have to create. I make sure, and ahead of time, I put together our talking points, what we're looking for the copy, and my agency is always sharing with me that they love that they have carte blanche to be creative. So I like to share that when I'm working with other PR professionals in the space and say, your agency or your graphic designer who's on your team is the expert. So let them have that agency to be creative. But if there are things that are within the parameters of you have to have these copy points or it needs to be in 2 languages, making sure that you say that up front so they know what the direction is. So always when I'm working with my creatives is to share all the information up front that I currently have and just be open to the process.
Sort of setting the guardrails, as it
Indeed.
were. Yeah, awesome, very nice. Jen, let's hear a little bit about your process. It might change a little bit from client to client, but
Yes, client to client, project to project. Actually, it's a really good segue because we usually pick up right about where she left off.
Yep.
there's a reason I put you 2 side to side.
My personal creative process is super weird, so we're not going to go into that. As a whole, as an agency creative team, once we get, for example, a brief from a client, we will have an internal kickoff. We'll get all the information that is provided by the client. We'll ask questions if needed, and then they kind of just send the creative team running. We usually get some time to concept 3 different concepts, bring them for a presentation, and then start, kind of drilling down from there, and then it filters out to the rest of the team. So we start, high level with brainstorming and internal reviews and all those fun meetings that can't be emails, we will say. And then, then everyone kind of hits the ground running, and the copywriters will write, and then we'll do layout, go back and forth with the client, proofread internally. Like there's lots of different moving parts. And then once we get approval, we have an entire team that executes all the pieces and sends them live.
Your
So
process sounds very collaborative.
yes, and that was like the really drilled down version for a very simple project. When you start getting into like video production, there's multiple teams, there's multiple agencies working on one thing. And that's where the real fun starts. It's big.
I love it. Yeah, we have several students who have maybe less of a design focus and more of a photo video focus, so feel free to throw in any
good to know.
what it's like to work
got
with
a lot of
them
that.
and tips they may need too, so very nice. Eric, general creative process. You kind of get to own that creative process as a freelancer somewhat.
Yes, and the word I'd use is non-linear
Okay.
to describe the process. There was a time when collaborating more in-house and agency where things could be a little more A, B to C to D, but now I find that I might be working on something very conceptual for a few hours and then need to really dive into something more production-based, but then be remembering something conceptual and need to shift gears back to catching an idea. So I think to describe my process, it would be what are the top priorities this week? I'm a list maker, so I do tend to use my own version of a spreadsheet style list. and I do have some method to my madness in that I do like to check off as I go what I'm accomplishing and getting done, and stressing out about what I've not got done at times. But it is a nonlinear process. It's something you have to be, at least in my world, able to shift gears when you need to and be okay with it being a little adaptive, because there are a lot of different changing needs at times. If I do have a client who needs something right away, I'll evaluate, am I positioned to do that? And I usually need to make that decision pretty quick for them. And then there's times where I need to say, you know what, I need to focus right now and be effective, because there's a dependency on this project down the road. Tomorrow, it needs to be at a point, and I'll have to tell someone, hey, I need a few hours. So it does take shifting gears a lot. And there's been a time where I felt a little bit agitated by that, but I'm learning much more to embrace that and just be okay with the nonlinearity.
Yeah, and it's interesting. You mentioned you use your own version of a spreadsheet, and I really like that because this class has a lot of that, where students have to build budgets and manage placement of people and vendors and all kinds of stuff. And I think that's a connection that students have a really difficult time making. How am I going to use this in my job going forward? And I can't tell you how many reckless spreadsheets cause brain damage in my life. So I'll be interested to hear more about that in a bit. Corey, general creative process, what does that look like for you?
At Scar Design, we have a very rigid creative process because we actually monetize how we walk clients through the design process.
Very different from some of the rest over here.
Yeah, I think so. Probably we have a very distinct. We have multiple packets we walk them through, and we kind of pride ourselves on educating the clients, getting sign-offs at every phase. Much like Amy, it's very analog. We try to remove as much technology as possible. But we have like an acceptance phase, an administrative phase, a research phase, an ideation phase, a judgment phase, and then we have a launch phase, and then a feedback phase. Feedback being consumer feedback, because we do a lot of consumer products with barcodes on them. And we kind of pride ourselves on getting clients to see their companies differently and getting their educational buy-in and emotional buy-in by the time the project is done. I think we just have a general philosophy that clients choose the solutions they understand. So we focus as much time as we can on getting them to understand our solutions.
I love it.
And that bleeds into everything we do. Resketch. AIGA is a little different because it's volunteers, and you have to kind of expand that out and let people have their own creative processes inside of a larger system. But we do try to keep the boat pointed in the same direction as much as we can.
Love it. Sounds very methodical. All right, new question. Hopefully this one is maybe not easier, but there's probably an answer in there somewhere. How is success measured in your role or in your organization? Amy.
Interesting. It depends. Going back to the stakeholders question, it depends on who you're trying to, the goal of whatever you're trying to work on for that particular stakeholder. If the design on social media, in print, wherever, even just kind of walking the halls or walking the stadium, if they're not getting people engaged, and they're not looking at that graphic saying, oh, that's really cool, or engaging with that social media graphic, or then that is a way to measure that success. If you're actually, your work is actually impacting a whole fan base, yeah, that engagement. And then that, again, relates to some of the other stakeholders, what is needed for business development. Whatever you design for business development, whether you're pitching, they're pitching with another partner or an incoming partner, did they look at what you had and say, you guys have a great product this season. We would love to pair up with you and partner with you for this. If it doesn't go through, or they're like, hey, it's the creative's just not working. Yeah, it's very easy to measure what works and what doesn't, especially with the fan base, with a lot of people. And then, of course, if it doesn't, at the end of the road, if it doesn't work for the owner, then, and it continues to not work for the owner, then you won't be working there anymore. So it's with those types of visuals and that type of work, it's very easy to see if something is successful or not.
Very nice. Thank you. Adriana, yours might look a little different.
It is different. I mean, in a school district, it's really identifying success to have the outcome that we have students that are prepared and ready to meet the next chapter in their educational careers. So there's that with the ed services side of the house, but for me, with communications and public relations, it's really building that reputation and having that strong brand that is helping connect our community and bringing them to be engaged in the education of our students. But from project to project, identifying success, it could depend on maybe we're going out for a bond or an override election, and we want to make sure that all of our content is effective and that it's helping to build the awareness as a public school or a public entity. We cannot say, yes, please vote for this, but we can give them the informational items to help make an impactful decision to move us forward. Or something we're working on right now is enrollment, an enrollment campaign. So getting the word out, getting the messaging, and then identifying the success metrics as saying, are we having students enrolled? And looking at those hard data numbers to say we started with this many in the summer, and now we have this many students in seats starting August 4th.
Yeah, very nice. And you mentioned identifying a strong brand. How do you know if a brand is strong?
I'm very passionate about our brand in the Glendale Elementary School District. We say we are the mosaic of minds. And so it's a very versatile brand that we can take out to our community and give them ownership in pieces because everyone in our district is a part of the mosaic. So for us, we can really see that in everything. We have the mosaic on our school buses driving by in the neighborhood. We have mosaic in every element. Every school has two colors that are some part of the mosaic. So just that feeling of community is really housed within our brand.
Yeah, and that probably looks different for each brand. So that's really nice.
Absolutely.
Jen, how is success measured in an agency environment? What does that look like?
For the organization as a whole, it's pretty cut and dry. When you have happy clients, you're successful. Because if you're meeting their goals or if you're satisfying what the ask was, it results in more projects, it results in organic growth, referrals, new business, and the agency just succeeds as a whole. Being only one part of an agency, the creative team, it looks a little bit different for us. We gauge success when we get to push that idea through that we were really passionate about and have that success. Because maybe the client's happy at the end of the day, but if it was the design we didn't want or the idea we didn't want or they just Frankensteined it, like, okay, that's a little bit of a womp womp moment. But me personally, in my role, because I'm very passionate about culture and community and mentorship, we do a lot of that in my agency. So at those times when we're working on something that maybe isn't quite as sexy, or we have clients that are Frankensteining things and we don't have that success, I can lean on the fact that I'm helping to grow future designers, or we have an initiative called Impact where we actually go work in the community and donate time, can go do that for a half an afternoon. So success at a personal level or in my role is gauged very differently each day, each week. But you'd be hard-pressed to find an agency that didn't tell you that their success is gauged by client satisfaction and growth. Yeah.
Sure, very nice. And you mentioned client growth and getting new business. And I think for a lot of us as maybe young creatives, I think we have this mindset about I'm a creative, I don't need to know the business side, but I think what I'm hearing in that is you absolutely do need to know a little bit
Should
about
care
business
about that, yes, for
in
sure.
order to succeed, particularly in an agency environment, and I think that's true for some of the others as well. Eric, how is success measured for a freelancer?
Well, in my case, it's about having excited supporters and customers, and then happy clients for sure. I think I relate to a lot what Jen said. The feeling, the intuition you get as you practice freelancing and consulting is you get a sense of how satisfied your customers and your clients are, and that's very encouraging to me. It's important to me that clients feel a sense of optimism when they work with me, and they get a sense that I'm there for them, I'm going to take care of them. One of the good things I have at in my situation is that I don't have a bunch of clients. I have very, very specific clients, and I'm pretty careful to not assume more work than I can handle. So they get a lot more personalized attention for a while, and that can be really helpful in building a relationship. One other thing is, quick story, is exhibiting like at Phoenix Fan Fusion, that like I've done for years. Having one-on-one conversations with customers and them telling me about some of the memories they've made with things that I've created, that gives me confidence that I'm moving my business and growing it in a good direction, at least, because growth is important for a small business, but you kind of want to end up more like a bonsai tree and not a forest, because the stress also comes with certain types of growth. So it's about curating your development and being very thoughtful, designing the path that you're heading on, and looking to that as your guide.
I like your metaphor of being like a bonsai tree and not like a forest, sort of a well-manicured individual as opposed to being everything all at once.
Well, and it can't be perfect, right? But I think the thing is to be intentional, and to understand, if you want to grow to be a small studio with multiple employees, that's great. But to understand the place you're in and the time you're in, and what's appropriate for the circumstance in the now.
Yeah, absolutely. Corey, how do you measure success in a nonprofit environment?
Well, I guess there's two sides to it. There's the happiness of the volunteers. Are they being fulfilled by the work that they're doing? There's nothing more demoralizing than putting time and effort, volunteered time and effort, into something that doesn't quite work out. So you're always managing their expectations and trying to motivate them. So my success there is, are they happy to be there? Whether it's a board meeting or an event. And then the flip side is, how many people show up to an event? And what kind of experience do they have there? Obviously, we kind of approach it as we want to create as many memories as possible. So we try to make the events as interactive as possible, and as, instead of making people sit and listen for 2 hours. So it's pretty cut and dry, really, at the end of the day on the member side. We want them to show up, we want them to be engaged, and we want them to help create the community.
Yeah, you and I have sat down for several hours trying to figure that out.
In-person meetings.
In-person meetings, yes. All right, cool. This one, easy question. What are the best parts of your job?
Oh, okay. Best parts of the job, definitely meeting the players, meeting the coaches, because it's a smaller NFL team, just that really close relationship. I don't know if anyone has heard the term football is family. So because it's such a small team, you definitely have and build up those relationships. And of course, like the cool things that come along with being a part of an NFL team, advanced screenings to movies that we talked about earlier. These kind of like behind the scenes events. And so just having that experience and that time, and then bringing family and friends, that's definitely super cool, being on field and just having those experiences. When we do well and are able to go to a championship, that's always really cool. And so it seems like from an outsider's perspective that all of the teams are kind of like separate and, any given Sunday we're enemies. But really all of the creative team are still family. So I could go to any state right now. If they have an NFL team there, I got family there, right?
So what I'm hearing is the perks are the
Yeah,
best
yes,
part of the
the
job.
perks are the best part. And it's that, again, going back to engagement, it's when you see a fan have something that you designed and then they're like, oh my God, this is so, like you overhear, oh my God, this is so cool, like I love this. I'm gonna see if I can get a player to sign it. So hearing that and seeing it kind of just materialize at events and overhearing it and seeing the work that you've put in for, 16 weeks, if you're lucky, is pretty amazing.
I think the perks, because I had a background in corporate design as well, I think the perks are probably the best
are
part.
amazing.
Depending on where you go, you get different perks. When I was at Drive Time, they were giving out free cars.
That is a
So
perk.
That's quite the perk.
That is a perk.
Very nice. Thank you. Adriana, best part of your job?
It's seeing the students thrive, and with that, it's because I have a background in journalism. I'm a Cronkite student, so being able to tell the stories and see students thriving in what they're doing, and then going back and actually seeing them progress. So maybe I take a photo of a kindergartner on first day of school. I'll remember that and then go back and say, I have the perfect photo of the cutest kid and we gotta use that. And it just makes me feel connected because I'm a mom. I know that what we're helping put out there is what's going to make our families feel warm and comforted. So that's really something that warms my heart. I come from a family of educators. I wanted to go into journalism, but how do I marry the two? And so having that connection is ideal for me. So that really is the best part of the job. Working in a communications department for a school district, I think it really is, you get to touch all parts of the district, and that's so great to be in collaboration with that.
So it sounds like the best part of your job is that you get to do things for others.
Indeed.
I love
yes.
it. I love
Thank
it.
you.
Jen, what do you like about the agency?
I thought long and hard about giving really superficial answers like, oh, my team is great and I love the fact that I get to create things. But to be so real, I love creating TV commercials that I see on TV. Like the entire process is the most fun, from pre-production to concepting to brainstorming to being on set. And then the final product being something that you get to be like, I made that. And which is funny to explain to people. They're like, what? Like you're a director? No, I go higher than that. It's just so fun. And it's not something I thought I would be doing when I went to school for graphic design. So that upward mobility in an agency that I didn't even know was available to me, it's like I think about that all the time, and it's just my favorite part.
So the best part is the badges of honor when you get to go home to the family and say, I helped make that.
Yeah, exactly.
I love it. Eric, best part of your job?
Oh man, it is a tough answer because there's a lot of things in my top 5 favorites, but I'd say really it's the illustration and design process that I enjoy the most because I feel like I'm doing things right now in my career that I was doing when I was 10 and 12. And I feel like that's pretty awesome because it's hard to hang on to things we love when we're kids and still be doing them. And every day I'm working, I don't take that for granted. I love the fact that I get to do that. And I think maybe alongside that is maybe a little bit of the sappy part is I've been around a little while, as you can tell, but I had a boy and his father come up. He was about 8 years old and he bought one of my games in the early mid-2020s. And I just in the past couple of years partnered with him. He came back as a music producer, and he wanted to make music for what project I was doing, and I said, let's do it, and you can own it. And that was hugely awesome. Like I couldn't believe it. I was like, you're Otto, you're the guy, and it was just awesome. It was an awesome feeling. So I think all of us get some of those feelings with either a client or a friend that we make through our work, or a student that we really connect with and shows appreciation for their instructors. So I'm right there with everyone here on that, the people side.
And I heard the pro there being a lot of the childlike wonder, and there's a quote that I'm gonna botch, but it's something about being a creative is a lot like being a kid. You just forgot how to do it. So I think that's really nice. Corey, what are the best parts of the job?
Putting people in rooms together. I mean, this is going to be a theme with me today, removing technology from the situation. But I just kind of have this passion and this kind of philosophy that the less we need each other, the worse the world gets. So that's the best part of it.
Technology anarchy, I like it.
Yeah.
All right, we're turning the heat up a little bit here. What is the hardest part of your job, but what is the hardest part that people outside of your sector don't usually see? Okay. I'm going to give you a second to think about that. So, what is the hardest part of your job that people outside your sector don't usually see? Amy, you have the tough job here of going first. I'm just going to keep coming back to you. So, take it away.
The hardest part of probably working, the first part would probably be just being a creative in the NFL.
Okay.
A lot of people don't, even when I landed the job and everybody's like, really, they need designers? And yeah.
I think there's a lot of roles that are like that, where you're like, oh yeah, that doesn't need to be.
That. That probably was the first big bump in the road. People not really understanding what I'm doing from day to day, and how much it takes, and how much that role really consumes, depending on the size of the team. So when I was at the Cardinals, there was only 2 of us. And so that's a lot.
Designing all the graphics.
All the graphics, and at the stadium, and there was also in-house graphics because people would come to the Tempe facility to see stuff there as well. So those also had to be designed. And then if a player retired, or if they were Pro Bowl, so there was a lot of extra pieces that had to be done as well. So I think that's the part that a lot of people don't really understand, is how much goes into it. And depending on the size of the team, it can really be a daunting task.
Tiring?
Yeah.
Not all rainbows and butterflies was what I heard.
No.
Okay. Good.
You are correct.
Very nice. Adriana, hardest part of your job that people outside your sector don't usually see?
I think for us, it's the day-to-day fight to position public education as a need for this country, and that it affects us in your local school districts. So we're fighting and being advocates, but still remaining partisan in our messaging. So for us, it's all of the challenges that are coming from the world around us, but then also keeping up day-to-day operations for each day.
Education is a need for the country.
Yes.
Obviously, we're sort of filming this panel for the people who are going on as far as they possibly can. Perhaps some of them are the first in their families. To get an education. Some of them are the first to get master's degrees, maybe. You mentioned something about having to stay partisan within your messaging.
Yes.
What challenges does that bring to the situation? Because I think in the public sector, a lot of people don't realize that it is still politicized.
Sure.
That sounds like a huge challenge. So what does that look like a little bit deeper?
Yes. That's when I put on my reporter hat and remain a journalist at heart, and make sure that everything that we're producing is factual and informational. That keeps us from putting in a bias. And then leaning on the guidance of my superintendent and our leadership team to make sure that we're staying to the values of our school district, so that that's part of the message, and that we're not putting anything that might get us into trouble with what we're doing as being adhered to our taxpayers.
Yeah, you keep mentioning those values. We'll come back and talk about those in a minute. Jen, hardest part of the job that people outside your sector don't normally see?
Point blank, all of the non-creative parts. I think there's a misconception that when you work in an agency, especially in the creative department, that your life is just so fun and you're just let the creative flow every day, all day. And there's a shocking amount that you don't have control over. The types of projects that come in, sometimes the way they're dictated, internal politics, like if the higher you go, if you're managing people, you have to discipline people. Like the admin day to day is definitely not my favorite. But if you can figure out a way to be good at it, which I'll get into later in one of your other questions, those soft skills make you really, really vital. But yeah, they're definitely not my favorite, and I think it's a big misconception, especially with students entering an agency. To your point, they don't really know exactly what goes into it, and some of it you just don't have a whole lot of control over.
Yeah, a little bit of that childlike wonder, maybe getting the best of them. Awesome. Eric, hardest part of the freelance world that people outside of freelance don't normally recognize?
Well, it's been said that there's nothing more addictive than a consistent paycheck. I think one of the things is developing resiliency and developing mental toughness, because there's times, look, I mean, this might sound a little negative, but hasn't everything become so scammy? It seems like whether it's in the political part or the social part or economy or any industry, it's almost scammers in general pinging me all day. Like everything seems like it's out to get something from, or take something, or lift something from me, my parents, young ones. Like, and developing resiliency to work and be creative and be positive in that kind of world it takes a lot of toughness, and it takes not giving in to becoming just jaded about what's around you, and all of a sudden the stuff you're making as part of your livelihood suffers. So the hardest part for me is continuing to find ways to maintain my optimism and mental resiliency. Part of that, the biggest part, is the connections I'm making with people locally.
Yeah.
Perspective, right? Because as a consultant, as a company of one, I'm in my studio just by myself with my own thoughts, and that's not always good. So I was telling Amy, my friends, other professional contacts, get me out from behind my desk. Let's meet, let's collaborate on something. And I think that's yeah, Corey. So that's been really helpful to me. I have been accused of being a little sensitive, and it's helped me to be less sensitive and more assertive about owning my business and my work and taking pride in it.
Yeah, I think we'll talk a little bit about sensitivity about our work, but I think that's really interesting and off topic, but my PhD research is exactly in getting people to stop scamming us through design. So I'm excited about that.
I'm excited to hear about
We'll
it
talk
too,
more. Corey, tell me a little bit about the hardest parts of nonprofit that people outside of nonprofit don't normally see.
The worst part of it for me is sometimes being in a position where you have to take something away from someone. Nonprofit is right there in the description, but money does flow through the system, and there are things at stake and at risk. And there are volunteers. In AIGA's world, no one gets paid. We're all a creative community that contributes. But every once in a while, there are situations where someone has to step in and keep the train on the tracks, and I do not like that.
Yeah.
I want to see everybody excel. I want to see everyone participate, but sometimes that's just not possible. It's rare, but it does happen. And I don't know if people think about that when they see smiling volunteers at an event having fun.
And what I heard there was nonprofit doesn't mean non-profitable.
That's right. It has to be profitable or we don't exist.
Yep, very nice. All right, that was a good, tough question. What do you wish you would have known before getting into your current role? Or Amy, for you, it would be your past role.
My past role. I was like, current role? Ooh, we ain't got time for that.
Yeah.
Past role, I wish I would have known more about the culture. And it's really hard to understand, and this actually kind of goes back to the previous question with how much work, et cetera, and some things a lot of people don't know. about working in-house, especially in the NFL. And the culture of, a lot of people think like, oh my gosh, you get to see players all day and you just get to hang out and you're probably tossing footballs around
Glitz and
just
glamour.
it's wonderful. And the culture of any NFL team could vary since they're all technically independent. And the culture for me was a little bit of a shock. And so finding out that I'm built for any job, I can adapt, because adapt or die. But I'm not built for in-house.
Yep.
Woo, baby. Corporate is, and it took a time to really learn that about myself, and I take that as a lesson. There are just some things that I would prefer to not stay in one place. I realize I like to move.
Yep.
I like to be comfortable in how I design. And depending on where you are in-house, that may not be allowed.
Yeah.
The culture shift may say, hey, you can't have those piercings because the owner doesn't like them, or you can't have those tattoos, or you have to wear a full business outfit to work even though you're not client-facing.
Yeah. Which is important in Arizona in particular because we're a right-to-work state.
Yeah.
At least as of right now.
As of right now. And so and granted, the people were wonderful. And the players, the coaches were wonderful. But even that, for me as a designer, I know that's how I like to design, and I like being comfortable. So, and again, I'll adapt wherever I need to go. So even though I'm coming in full, business attire with the heels and the skirt and you better believe I have a hoodie on, and I have a heater at my desk, and I have a blanket on, and I have noise-canceling headphones, and where everybody keeps their files up there, I have snacks. So I was able to adapt, but after a handful of seasons there, I was like, I like heels, but not that much.
Yep.
Like I don't need to wear them all day every day. So
it's interesting because I think I like to say I was also forged in the fire of corporate, and
it's the dumpster fire, of course.
oh, absolutely. And you mentioned culture. Something that I learned really early in my career is that when you go into the interview, and this doesn't always yield an answer, and sometimes it's a lie that they give you, but asking what is the culture like in the interview can be a huge first step into understanding, has anyone in that room actually thought about the culture?
Correct.
And if that's something that you value, I think that's huge. Similar to asking, just like I've asked all of you, what are the metrics for this job, right? What are the metrics for success in this job?
Absolutely.
I think that's a huge question to ask, so thank you.
Of course.
Adriana, what do you wish you had known about your current role before you got into it?
I wish I would have known that that was an option for me, because I was working in the newsroom. I loved my job, but I was doing overnights, midnight, to get the morning show produced. And I loved it, but the timing and the schedule was grueling. So I didn't know what my next step was. I thought it was just another newsroom, but it was my former educator, administrator dad that said, school districts have PIOs, public information officers, and communications departments. And then getting into a school district, getting connected with my professional association, the Arizona School Public Relations Association, and showcasing that it's a full breadth of careers: graphic designers, print shop managers, specialists in journalism, specialists in marketing, and all of that as an option. So I am so grateful that ASU is doing career exposure to multiple avenues in this
And
world.
I think you're doing a little bit of your dad's history here, and
Yes.
you're sort of, I think a lot of our students don't even know that the public sector is an option for them. I think you go into design school and it's like, go work for a company or go work for an agency. If you're good enough, maybe freelance. But I don't think most students know that the public sector is even an option.
Like sports.
With really good benefits.
Absolutely. That's a perk for us.
ASRS is a wonderful
Great
perk.
benefits. You have a school schedule if you have a family. For administrators, it's a little different. You're on all the time. But if you want to be in just with the parameters of a day of a school, you can.
I love it. I love it. Thank you. Jen, what do you wish you would have known? Peek behind the curtain.
I am fully aware of how weird this is going to sound. But I wish that I had known sooner that a creative director does that. They direct all creative. Because it took a really long time to realize that you kind of need to get out of your lane a little bit, the pathway you went up in. We have creative directors that are copywriters and they still write copy. And I came up through design and art direction, and I very heavily lean on the visuals. Whereas I have junior people on my team that figured that out sooner, and even though they're in lower roles, they are viewing it from strategy and goal setting and usability, sustainability, all these things, and not just in their lane. And I see them coming up quicker than I did.
Multifaceted.
Yes, and I'm like, if there's one thing I can pass on to your students, it's if you have creative director, because everyone wants to be a creative director, think about what that truly means and start that a little earlier. That's not to say that there's not a place for truly great art directors that then become creative directors, but like you just are going to have a bit of a leg up. So that's something within maybe just the past few years that I've learned, and I think that my work has gotten a lot better because of it, and I collaborate better because of it.
Yeah, and you mentioned being a creative director means directing all the creative. This is going to sound a little passive, but what does that mean? What does direct all the creative mean?
Well, if you think about it in the sense of like hierarchy of your team, typically any creative team in an agency setting is going to have art directors, copywriters, designers, production artists, maybe you have video people, photo people. So think about being able to direct all the things they do, even though you yourself don't do them.
And knowing a little bit about what they do, just
yes.
enough to be dangerous.
Yes, and taking it a step further than that, we're a strategy-focused agency. We don't think anything should be done just willy-nilly. It should have an insight behind it.
Amen.
And a lot of creatives are at that point where they're like, just tell me what I need to know and I'll go make it pretty. And no, you should be a part of the strategy. And the more you know about your client, the more you know about the project and the goals at hand.
Psychology.
Yes. It's going to make the work better. It's going to result in more of the work. It's in better work. And yeah, it's really easy to stay in the let's just paint pretty pictures space. And it also opens up more opportunities. So you mentioned a lot of your students like production and photo work and everything. I didn't think about that when I was a designer.
Yeah.
And now it's one of my favorite parts of my job is being on set of a video that I myself am not creating, but it's my vision being brought to life. And that's such an amazing feeling.
I love that. I love that. Eric, what do you wish you had known before you started freelancing? Maybe there's a laundry list, but let's pick a few.
Well, coming from in-house, where I was working as a design director for about 12 years, I already had the multi-armed approach, right? I was conditioned on multitasking and being used to distractions in IM all day. I don't think I was prepared, though, or I didn't fully understand maybe how many more arms I would need to grow. Because when the government needs things from you, when insurance needs things from you, when an event you're doing needs things from you, when clients start competing for your time or customers have questions and you want to be there for them, you need to really, I have tried to get away from multitasking. I think it's one of the worst things in our work culture ever be invented or expected of people.
So technology anarchy and multitasking anarchy, I got it.
I can't stand it. I have some strong words for that stuff. But I think the thing is I didn't understand maybe like how much minutia would distract me. Because I'm a person that when the state is saying, hey, submit this license application immediately or else blah, blah, blah. Oh, and it's going to take 5 weeks for it to get approved, but you need it now. Like, I get stressed out about that kind of stuff. I don't think there's a lot of states that make it easy on small businesses. So I know a lot of people out there understand that. But yeah, I think I knew it was going to be a challenge, and I was here for it to go on my own full time. But that's an area where I've needed to really grow in my acceptance that some days are not going to be about illustration. Some days we'll be trying to whack the moles of you know, what the state or the government or,
Yep.
yeah, all these folks need from you as a small business.
Well, and oddly enough, some of our next panels are going to be, I'm bringing my accountant and lawyer to sit in here with us.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
they're
Those
going to
are
tell us about some of those government requirements.
Conversations too, yeah.
But it takes time to, as a small business owner, to get to a point where you can even afford, hey, accountant, I need you to do this. You kind of have to earn that
Yeah.
and do it yourself for a little bit.
Yep.
So I think those are really important call outs. So thank you. Corey, what do you wish you had known before you took on your role as president at AIGA?
Well, I think it's, to answer the question, I have to be a little bit more universal.
Sure.
Being responsible for an entity, whether it be something as complex as a nonprofit organization or a chapter of a nonprofit organization or a project, the amount of personal sacrifice it takes to make something significant can be overwhelming. And there's a lot of altars that need sacrificial lambs, and you are usually that lamb. And I'm happy if my day ends before the sun goes down, just so I can pet my dog and eat something before I go to bed before it starts the next day. And if you want to do something significant in this business, I think it takes more than a 9-to-5 mentality, and you better be prepared for that. And you better be willing to take the slings and arrows of people disagreeing with you all day, because that's going to happen.
Yeah, absolutely. You mentioned personal sacrifice. We're going to get into that a little bit, because I think to some degree I've heard each of you mention some amount of personal sacrifice that goes into this. It's not, as Corey said, wake up at 9, go to bed at 5, or, I mean, work
Have a
from
life
9 to
after
5. Most of us are probably up super early, going to bed super late. It's kind of it's the midnight oil that keeps us going. So thank you for sharing all of that. What misconceptions do people typically have about the type of work in your sector? And I'm going to change it up on you guys just to give Amy a break from being first. Corey, let's start with you. What do you think people? What misconceptions do you think people have about the work that happens in your sector?
That it's fun all the time. I think people look at any kind of creative endeavor as like, well, you like to do this, right? And the truth is you probably do, but like,
That doesn't mean it's not hard.
it doesn't mean it's not hard, but it also, the creative process, in my opinion, is like 10% design and 90% problem solving. So it's not the balance you think it is. And just because something ends up looking pretty doesn't mean it was like, you know, tiptoeing through the tulips as you did it. So that would be my answer.
I like to tell my students that the difference between a designer and an artist is that a designer solves problems.
Yeah.
And I think that that's sort of what I'm hearing in what you're saying there. Eric, what misconceptions do people have about the type of work you do in your sector?
Well, Corey hit on the prime one. I think I'd say second to that is, for me at least, is that every idea that you have must be a good one, because you're here. You get to do this full time. You're a freelancer, you're a consultant, you're running your own business. You've got here, and it must be on the merit of like every idea that you've had. And they don't always know how many you've had to ditch because they just had no, and letting go of some of your own ideas, I think, is hard for a lot of people to accept when you have a good idea, but you know that to execute it, it's not going to be sustainable. It's not going to be. So I think the misconception can sometimes be that every creative idea is worth, pursuing or exploring, or can be lucrative. The reality is that many ideas never get produced, and that needs to be okay.
I have little stickers made that say "Take it behind the barn." Sort of an Old Yeller quote there, or not quote, but an Old Yeller reference. But for the younger audience members, they may not get that reference, but I think most of you do. Sometimes you gotta take an idea behind the barn when it's feral.
Well, and also one other thing I'd mention real quick is that things that are good must always be famous. Because online, let's face it, we all know Instagram is kind of a popularity contest, and it's entertainment. You know, it's not really intrinsic or critical to my business, really. But a lot of what we see in pop culture is famous, so it must be good. So people support it. But there are so many people doing good work that will never be famous, and that's another part of it's attached to idea generation.
Yeah.
So.
Very nice. Yeah, I think I could probably go and pull a couple YouTube videos that is doing what we're doing here right now, but I would so much rather hear from you guys. Yeah, no, they're nowhere near as fun. I think we've got a good banter here. All right, Jen, your turn. What misconceptions do people have about the type of work you do in your sector?
I mean, I could just double down, or I guess triple down on the same answer. It's just, it's not always fun and glamorous, and so much of it is that problem solving, or, you know, you might know deep within your soul that you have the right solution, that the idea is good, that it's what the client should do, and then you're just gonna get a client that's like, nope, I don't like the color blue, and you can't fight them on it. So it's part of the job, and
Some
just
people
because
don't know their own good.
yeah, I just, you know, they're not always going to treat you like the expert that you know you are, and that's a tough pill to swallow sometimes. Almost in direct opposition to my last answer about creative directors directing all creative. Some days you're not going to direct any creative. You're going to sit in meetings from 9 to 5 and then cry when you go home. I'm just kidding about that. So yeah,
Maybe
it's
a
not
little.
always, it's sometimes a happy cry.
Up a little bit.
It's not always glamorous, it's not always fun, but like in the end, you're doing something that so few people do in their careers, which is just like creating something out of nothing, and just like remember that part.
Yeah. Adriana, I suspect you're going to say something along the lines of, it's actually really fun for me.
Always.
Well, I think it is the misconception that anybody can do it. And so I like when Jen said the Frankensteining. There is so much Frankensteining going on of flyer creations, graphics, and there's always a cringe moment of, ooh, how did it get out there? And it just breaks down that integrity of the brand, and every time we see it, it just hurts. So we like to make sure that communications departments are the eyes and the ears of anything that's going out to adhere to those brand standards, but it's not going to happen. So a lot of what we have to do is a lot of train the trainer. We know that maybe school administrators and school secretaries are going to be creating things, so let's make sure they have at least the framework that they can put out that it helps create those guardrails.
There's a really big mindset around design democratization, sort of making the designer's job easier by making sure that everyone can design it. And sometimes that can be helpful, but I felt a few cringes on the stage. And I think you're probably dealing with some of that where everyone thinks they're a designer, right?
Yes.
And having to sort of yank the chain politely.
Yes.
What does that look like for you, yanking that chain?
It looks like a lot of training. It looks like a lot of spying and keeping
Covert
tabs. Yes,
operations.
what's out there and what's being and checking in. Absolutely.
Reference check.
Yes. But I mean, you can't. Especially being a solo operation is no joke. I can't do everything out there, but creating resources is ideal in my district to say, here's a toolkit that you can use that is set up with our brand standards. Please help keep and adhere to this by using this toolkit and resource kit.
Yeah, contrary to what you might tell your children, you don't have eyes in the back of your head.
Right.
But we won't tell them that. Amy.
Yes. that it's easy. That would probably be the biggest thing, because they're seeing the end product. So that is easy. The flip cards when coaches are talking, you know, those documents, those have to be done. That was me. Those magazines that go out, the yearbooks that people sign, like that, some of the Pro Bowl stuff, that was, and there's only 2 of us. So I think just seeing the end result of it and just saying, oh, you just did a social post, or it's just, You know, you're just making pretty stuff all day. And kind of like Jen was saying about being a strategist, taking all of those other things into account, finding the right photo for the post, and, you know, following all those social media guidelines and print guidelines. And before they went digital, my boss and I were designing the tickets and then getting them to print in time. And then, so understanding what goes into each of those graphics, even the signage at the stadium, and how those have to be scaled up, and if they're, you know, with a partner, how adhering to their brand standards as well. Like, it's a lot. And so I think the hardest thing is people just think it's easy, and that it can be done fast.
So what I'm hearing is that none of you in your day-to-day have carte blanche on the work you do. Yeah. So let's talk about that. How much creative freedom do you typically have in your role from any particular project? Corey, let's start with you.
I think we have a fair amount, not at AIGA.
Sure.
Obviously, that's a community-driven thing, but on the resketch, aside from slight feedback, but at Scar Design, we usually go into we're 100% referral-based. Mm-hmm. So we usually go into every situation with a fair amount of say. Yeah. It helps when they come to you and you don't go to them. Mm. That's probably rare, but it's also a small studio, so we have the ability to select our clients if we feel like we can solve their problems. Yeah. But like at AIGA, it's 100% a collective voting system, so.
Yeah. Sort of the democratic process, if
yeah.
you will.
But again, point the boat in the right direction, and I believe in like building consensus, not collecting it. Yep. So, you know, you do have to lead there and hope everyone follows you.
Love that, building consensus and not collecting it. Eric, how much creative freedom do you typically have in your role? Yours might be a little different than some of these over here.
Well, now, if it's a product or an item I'm going to make to share on my shop or something like that, I primarily have a great amount of freedom to decide what the direction is. But if it's, let's say that it's an interactive project like a tabletop game, you still have collaborators and they're the play testers. So as they give you feedback and they give you information to make decisions on, and you refine things, you understand, wow, I'm actually collaborating with all these play testers. I'm not really making it on my own. There is a kind of a communal effort involved to make something that equals fun. So if it's a client project, there are parameters I've set up. You know, if someone's really on a budget, I'll give them some options and say, well, you're going to relinquish more creative control the less money you can invest, because I'm going to need to make some decisions to maximize our time. So I'll be flexible that way. If they're, you know, paying standard rates and industry comparatives to what, you know, illustration or design work I'm doing, then the understanding is that we're doing things more together. They have the driver's seat in terms of maybe some of the direction, but it's ultimately collaboration. I like to approach, you know, contracts or agreements as, look, we're in this together. We're going to make each other shine if we do this right, and that's what we both want. And usually my clients have been really on board with that, because they're coming from a small to mid-size perspective, not like a giant corporation. So that's going to muscle its way through. I don't have those clients, so yeah.
Yeah, sort of that partnership sounds really important there. Jen, how much creative freedom do you typically get?
In the beginning stages of any project, a lot. We're really, really good about making sure you're getting the opportunity to explore everything. We are strategy driven, so there's going to be that goal or insight in mind. But if we're bringing multiple options to a client, we're going to make sure those are 3 distinct directions that can get you where you need to go. And we get to have a lot of fun doing that part. We call it being messy up front. So, you know, all the art directors, all the creative directors can be involved in that, or, you know, bringing people in from other parts of the agency who might not typically do this sort of thing but are a part of the target audience. We'll get to really spitball and, you know, they say throw things at the wall and see what sticks. It starts to funnel and bottleneck as less of us are involved and more client is involved as their feedback starts to come in. And you can have a project that ends up very dictated towards the end, especially anything that deals with like a legal department or a board of directors that it has to go through. Like, we can feel very strongly about an image and they're going to be like, we are not allowed to use that image ever or anything like it. So a lot of the freedom gets stripped, but we try to maintain as much integrity in any given concept as we can when that happens.
Love it. Love it. And I'm sort of envisioning a funnel where it's like at the beginning you get a lot of creative control and then it just sort of shrinks as you go through the project. So very nice. Adriana, how much creative freedom do you usually get?
I'd like to think that we have a fair amount. However, budget constraints really keep us tied to parameters.
Because those budgets aren't set by the amount of money that's coming in, it's set by the taxpayers, right?
Exactly, yes. And every school district is different in what they are allocating for their marketing budget. For me being a solo department, I have a nice budget because my superintendent believes in marketing and community outreach. And so I can create that relationship with my agency to earmark what we'll get into, but an open PO because they've gone out for an RFP to make them my agency that allows for that freedom.
Yeah, I love it. Amy, creative freedom, what does it look like?
It depends on the project. If it's directly from Michael Bidwell, the owner, or anyone on the executive team, it may be a little bit more constrained. If it's something that they're like, hey, we need a step and repeat for the draft party, I can make a few of those, and it's fine. And then there's things that are the middle of the road, like they still have to have Cardinals or NFL branding, but I have a little bit more play depending on what the event is, if it's a community event or like flag football or something. So it depends on who's asking. And if it's, again, partner related, like Jen said, are there things we can't apply to this design or at this time or whatever? So there's a lot of nuance in who's asking and the time frame that they're asking as well.
I love that. Last question. What skills or character traits do you think would make someone successful in your sector of the creative industry? Corey, let's start with you. Patience. Ooh, that was a
Off the cuff.
off the cuff
Boom.
answer. Yeah.
Think about patience every minute of every day.
All right. And what is it about patience that?
In the volunteer realm, a lot of modern volunteers are younger, and they might not have the life experience or the skill set to go from point A to point Z with, some elegance. So,
Nicely worded.
so you just have to let people screw up. You have to let them fail, and you have to just sit back and let them grow into the role that they're in. And that takes a tremendous amount of patience.
Yep. We're going to talk about some of those failures in a minute. So,
Okay.
Eric, how about you? What skills or traits would you think make someone a successful freelancer?
Wow, Corey took a really good one.
Let's wrap it up.
Well, I'll say realness. Being open and honest.
Authenticity.
Yeah, about things, and what that might look like too practically, to what you're creating for whether you are going to be an entrepreneur and a design entrepreneur, make things to market, bring to market. One timely analogy might be like if I was to say I'm going to start a restaurant and guess what? All the food is going to be made in a microwave. People might think you are absolutely crazy to do something like that. But that's what AI is. So AI is a microwave, and the more people cook in it, the more we understand it's not cooking. It's not even real food. So I think the thing is as an independent business owner, your realness comes through either your products or your services, or both, if you do a little both. But the realness you're bringing to your customer is going to be more and more important. I think the future realness is going to be more rare, and it's a competitive advantage, I think, right now.
Yeah. I really like your analogy of AI being a microwave. That's really nice. Jen, what character traits or skills would you say makes a successful agency creative?
It's an unpopular opinion, I think, but I firmly believe in the soft skills. And I say that because I now know without a doubt that we are not lacking any talented creative in this community. You can't throw a stone without finding a brilliant illustrator or graphic designer or educator. To stand out, you have to be able to go above and beyond. And what a lot of creatives can't do, especially as they get into higher positions, is present their work eloquently or not take offense when an idea has to die or, you know, sit in meetings where their client is just like saying all the cringe things and you just have to put a smile on your face. Like, these things almost can't be taught unless they're in you intrinsically. And I think a lot of times I don't know about you guys, but as creatives coming up, we were taught that like, no, creatives are gods. That's what you focus on, your skill. And that's not the case anymore. I think you have to figure out a way to set yourself apart. And I myself have found success by being able to stay organized, to communicate properly, to be responsive, to get my work done in a timely manner, all of the things outside of my creative skill set. And I really can't express that enough to the upcoming generation of creatives, especially in the agency world. It might be different in-house and freelance, but.
And so what I'm hearing is that all 8 or 9 of the presentations that my students are going to have to give in this class are going to be valuable exercises of those soft skills.
100%. I will not give any details because NDA, but I will tell you that I have dealt with a very senior level creative being taken off of client work because they're like, we can't handle the way he presents. And it was good work.
Yep. Yeah, very nice. I think that's sometimes a tough pill to swallow. We'll talk about getting taken off of projects, but no, thank you. I think those soft skills are really important. Adriana, skills, traits, what do you think makes a successful person in the public sector?
In the public sector, I think adaptability is ideal. Well, yes. Different circumstances, but to give an example, in a public school, you could be working on a fun campaign and putting in fun images, but then you get the call that there is a crisis that's happening, and then your mind has to immediately shift to the sense of urgency and work on that to be able to share the factual information with your community. So being able to pivot, the adaptable traits are ideal for someone coming into this world.
And you have, I'm going to phrase this carefully, but I think you have a unique position where you have to potentially deal with irrational public backlash.
Yes, the trolls are always out to get us.
Okay, yes, I think
I'll
that's,
leave it at that.
yeah, I think that's a good way to phrase it. Thank you. Amy, I know Adriana stole yours, so I'll buy you some time here.
No, I'm going to use the same one.
Okay, perfect.
I'm totally going to use the same one. Yeah.
What skills
Second that emotion.
or traits do you think make someone successful in the...
Adaptability, adapt or die.
Okay.
Adapt or die. Like if you, in any position, especially in in-house, with everything that comes with in-house, because I think another misconception is that we, as creatives, when we go into in-house, we're going to be almost treated and or presented like everything else. And creative is usually last. It's usually last, right? Because the CEO, the CFO, finance, human resources, all those other things come before creative. And understanding that they're really just gonna be like, hey, can you make this really quick? It should only take you 5 minutes. Don't do that. But just realizing that that's the lens that they view you and your job from. And so adapting to those different situations for different departments at different times of the year. I mean, people are gonna learn after a while even how you as a creative work or I as a creative work. Like if you come to my desk, my headphones are on, and you try to talk to me, like,
Nothing else getting done
right?
that
Like
day.
don't, right? Like I'm neuro glittery, like I'm going to get distracted. So like don't do that. So, but adapting to those situations, understanding the time that you have, the time that you don't have, and then just office politics. Just like, you know what? I'm not even gonna go down that hall today. Like literally, I'm not gonna walk down that hall because that's just I can't.
There's a thickness in that air.
There's a thickness over there. So just adapting to certain situations in-house and just the way in-house is structured is so important. So.
Very good. I think there's a really good way to close this out. I want to ask each of you guys an individual question that is unique for you and your sector. So Amy, I'm going to start with you. We're going to flip it back again. How do you maintain creative energy when you're designing within an established brand system, often in really condensed timelines?
That is a great question. So after that initial conceptual phase, especially if I'm stuck, it sometimes is asking other teams and seeing what other teams are doing. Again, we are, even though any given Sunday we're not compatible, especially on field, but creatives are. We get it. So sometimes it's the, oh, well, they did it this way. Let me try doing it this way. Or what you did last year, or sometimes you can pull from press conferences, something that somebody said. So there's a lot of inspiration to garner from, even just like previous games or things that people have said, things that the owner has said, other coaches, et cetera, and what other teams are doing. So there's a lot of inspiration that can be had from just being around the office. And again, blasting music, that always, that helps me. I don't know, I can't get through a day without Metallica, so.
Love it. Adriana, what are some of the, I told you we were going to come back to this, what are some of the political or social sensitivities you have to consider within the public sector?
I want to be careful in my response.
Sure.
Because we want to make sure that we are presenting our school district as the option for all students, and we want to share those messages because we have such a diverse demographic. We have a diverse community. We have families that have grandparents that are raising their children. We have families that are coming to us for the first time in the US. So for us, really the drive in what we do is because we're here for all kids. We're all in for all of our kids. And to come onto a team within a school district, it's really, are you mission driven? Are you values based? Do you align to what we're doing in our work to educate students?
I love that. Jen, what advice would you give to someone who's, the advice that I usually give to someone who's coming into the corporate or agency life is get a sleeping bag and keep it under your desk. I think the environment has maybe changed a little bit. So what advice would you give to someone who's considering entering agency life for the first time?
I cannot speak for all agencies, but I can say that yes, that has changed for us. Work-life balance and mental health is very important at my agency. So no sleeping at work required, although we work from home, so that's kind of irrelevant. I would say perseverance. The adage of don't fall in love with any of your work is probably especially true in an agency environment because you touch so many things and you give so many options. And especially as a junior level creative, it is so hard to come in and work on something that you really love and you're really passionate about and just have it squashed. Sometimes internally, it doesn't even make it to the client. And those ones are a real tough pill to swallow, but you are not your work. You're producing your work and you can be passionate about it and you should always love what you do, but your worth is not tied to it. So, perseverance is going to be key, especially in the first few years. Your skin will get thick, but it's going to be tough in the beginning, no matter what.
I think we've all probably stood in front of a couple clients who just ripped our shit and had a great time with it. So.
Yeah. Find good mentors and collaborators in your team.
I love that.
Your
I
buddy.
actually say that in a lecture where I call it people over process.
Yeah,
And we talk about how finding yourself a mentor, I believe, is one of the fastest ways you can grow in this industry. So very nice. Eric, you hosted an AIGA event yesterday where you said that you are one life reality from working a day job. So how do you balance creativity with the realities of running a business and ensuring that you are putting food on your family's table?
It's about knowing when enough is enough. someone smart said something like, when you know enough what enough looks like, you'll always have enough. So I don't go after a lot of the big fish projects. I tend to stick with the ones I know I'm gonna excel at, and they'll get me a good wage for my time. When I'm looking to you know, secure work, I'm trying to build some sort of value in for that, you know, a client, whether it's delivering them extras that I know they're gonna need in their work, or I'm looking out for them in terms of, you know, when they go to production later, offering them some resources to consider. But I think the gist of your question was, well, remind me of the other part. There was another part of your question.
How do you balance the creativity with the realities of running a business effectively?
Right, right. So I do have my wife, who has been very supportive from a business standpoint, has helped me with certain things in my job to grow this business. Other folks out there, whether they're students going into freelancing, or they may not have all the social structure that like I have yet, but there's gonna be people that help along the way, especially if you're running your own business. You're gonna know who those people are, whether they're mentors, they're a family member, they're a friend. I think those folks will help you to find ways to focus on the things that are gonna be meaningful to be doing, because there's a lot of non-meaningful work that you could spend time on. And if you have people in your life that are willing to help you in some way with a task or a set of tasks that they are willing out of their heart to help you do, show appreciation for that.
Yeah.
Be grateful that you have those things. And I say that all the time, just in terms of, that's my reality check. It is a privilege to be doing what I'm doing, but I also know that serious things happen in people's lives and they need a pivot, and all of a sudden they've got to get a different job or they got to do something different. So I try to be respectful and mindful of that, and be as productive as I can be every day.
Yeah. That same lecture, people over process, I also tell my students to work with the garage door up. And I think that speaks to your mentality about bringing other people in. And other people's too. And the philosophy there is, just like when you are working on something in your garage, whether it's a car or you're whittling a boat down or whatever it is, when the neighbors walk by, they're gonna come up the driveway and they're gonna ask you, what are you doing? And every once in a while, you might get someone who asks, can I help? And I think that that's a huge part of freelancing. And just like you all are helping me now, so thank you. Corey, how do values and mission impact the design process, specifically in nonprofit work?
Well, for a local chapter of a national organization, it's something that we just have to follow to keep our charter.
Yeah.
You know, but I guess we do apply our own personal values to what we do at AIGA, and it's just about community. So we just give as many people a qualified voice as possible, you know?
Like that.
And I think AIGA is it like 110 years old now?
Wow. Yeah, around that, yeah.
And I think the future of those values have to change from leading from the front to leading from behind. And that's what we're trying to do in Arizona.
Yeah.
Let people like Eric step in front and give people, professionals, a forum to talk instead of AIGA doing the talking.
I love it. Sort of less gatekeeping.
Yeah.
I like it. Ladies and gentlemen, I think that concludes our first panel